welcome to DIY with Nancy. Today I'm going to share with you a recipe for a Portuguese cookie called Bolinhos de Doce Branco. That's what I was growing up calling them, and that's what I still call them. Now, a lot of people have a lot of names for them, but this is what they are. It's a soft sugar cookie made with basic ingredients. Very popular cookie. You can see them around bakeries during the holidays, especially Easter. Very popular, very delicious. And like I said, it's a very soft cookie. It has a soft texture with a sugar glaze that is placed on top of the cookie. And they're super delicious, easy to make. And I'm going to show you how to make it step by step. Let's get started with the first step. I'm using my stand mixer for this recipe, and I'm going to start off by placing 4 whole eggs and 1 egg yolk. To that, I'm going to add half a cup of granulated sugar and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Next, I'm going to add my whisk attachment to my mixer. Now I'm going to let the mixer go for about 3 to 4 minutes until I reach a light, pale yellow, fluffy batter. Now my mixer's been going for about 3.5 minutes. You can see I have a really fluffy, pale yellow consistency of the batter, and I'm just gonna let it continue mixing for another 30 seconds. Okay, I've had the mixer going for about 4 minutes. I've reached a nice, fluffy, pale yellow batter or mixture. I see it's very runny, but at the same time it's very fluffy, and that's exactly what you want. So now at this point, I'm ready to move on to the next step. Now at this point, I'm going to sift in my dry ingredients. I'm going to place 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'm going to place it through a sifter. And I'm adding 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Now I'm going to take the dry ingredients and sift them right in to the fluffy pale yellow batter. Now I'm just going to take a spatula and I'm going to fold in the dry ingredients into the batter. And as you can see, I'm folding it gently. I'm bringing it from the bottom up. Now I'm going to continue folding the dry ingredients into the pale yellow batter until I no longer see any flour. And my mixture is well combined. My batter is ready. I'm going to now set this aside and move on to the next step. Now I'm setting it aside and moving on to the next step. I'm going to use a cup to fill the batter into a piping bag, and I'm using a disposable piping bag. Again, I say this numerous times. If you don't have a piping bag, don't worry about it. It's just a matter of putting all of the batter into the bag and then piping it onto a cookie sheet. But you can use a Ziploc bag. That will work fine. Now I'm going to start placing the batter into the piping bag, and once I fill that up, I'll show you the next step. Okay, the batter is filled into the piping bag. I'm just going to press the batter down towards the bag so I can release any air, just as I'm doing here. And then eventually I'm just going to tightly secure it so it's easier to pipe the batter onto the cookie sheet, and then I'm going to cut the tip. Now here I have a baking sheet with parchment paper, and I'm going to pipe the batter right onto the baking tray. So I'm going to just cut the tip right at the bottom, and there we go. And I'm just going to remove that and remove the scissors, and I'm going to start piping the batter right onto the cookie sheet. Now when I'm piping the batter, you will see that I'm leaving about 2 inches between the batter because these will expand while baking in the oven. So you just want to make sure you give it that space to expand in the oven. Now I'm going to continue piping the batter onto the cookie sheet, and at this point I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm now going to place the Bolinhos de Doce Branco into the oven. I'm going to bake them at 350 degrees for about 12 to 14 minutes. Here are the Bolinhos de Doce Branco. I had them in the oven for about 13 minutes. I removed them just before the 14-minute mark. They look perfect. Now I'm going to let them cool, and while they're cooling, I'm going to move on to the next step in preparing the Doce Branco, the white sugar glaze. Now let's move on to preparing the Doce Branco, the white sugar glaze. I have here 1 1/2 cups of powdered sugar. I'm going to try to keep it in the bowl. I have 1 egg white, which is the egg white I used for my yolk earlier. And next I'm going to place 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. Now I'm going to stir it to combine, and what I want is a thick glaze. I also have some water set aside. I have about 1 tablespoon of water. Now, if you don't get the consistency you're looking for, don't worry about it, because you can always add a little bit of water, which is what I'm doing here. I added 1 tablespoon of water, and now I'm going to keep mixing it until I get a thick consistency. It's going to be a little runny, but thick. So I'm going to keep stirring it, and I can see the consistency is perfect. Let me show you. So it's a little runny, but it's thick. And this is the consistency that you want to place onto your sugar cookies. So moving on to the next step, before I do the glaze, I want to show you what they look like. They have a beautiful color on the bottom, and they have a light color on the top. Now here to my left, I have a piece of parchment paper and a rack to place the sugar cookies once they have been glazed. So that way if the glaze drips, it can drip onto the parchment paper and not my counter. So let's get started. Now this can be a messy process. I'm going to put the glaze right here in front of me. With one hand I'm going to hold the cookie, and the other hand I'm going to take the spatula, and then I'm going to smother the sugar glaze right onto the cookie, just as I'm doing here. Now I want to completely coat the top of the cookie and make sure it has an even coat of the sugar glaze. And then once I've coated it with the sugar glaze, I'm going to take 3 fingers and swirl my fingers into like a U shape, just as I'm doing here. And voila, there is your Portuguese sugar cookie. And on to the next cookie. I'm going to continue glazing the cookies, and I'll show you what they look like at the end. Here are my Bolinhos de Doce Portuguese sugar cookies. Now the glaze is very wet. It will harden, so I'm going to set it aside for 1 hour, let the glaze dry, and I'll show you what they look like inside. Now the glaze has hardened on top of the cookie, and the inside, let me show you. It's a light and airy cookie on the inside, very soft, and it's not very sweet on the inside. That sugar glaze on the top just makes a perfect combination for this cookie. Look how soft it is. This cookie absolutely melts in your mouth, and I hope you give this recipe a try. And there you have it, everyone. That's how I make my Bolinhos de Doce Branco. It's a Portuguese sugar cookie that's very soft in the inside with a nice sugar coating on the top. You want to make sure you place them on a cooling rack before you serve them. You want to give it enough time for the sugar glaze to harden on the top. On the inside, very soft. And this recipe makes 18 Bolinhos de Doce Branco, 18 sugar cookies. I hope you all enjoy the recipe, everyone. And if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, thanks so much for watching. Take care. Wow.